Marcus Reed's fist connected with Dr. Leonard Hastings' jaw before anyone could stop him. The chief neurologist crashed into the medication cart, pills scattering across the marble floor like deadly confetti. Blood sprayed from his split lip as Marcus grabbed him by his white coat, slamming him against the wall. "You let her die," Marcus roared. "My daughter died while you played God with her life." Victoria Ashford, CEO of America's third-largest pharmaceutical empire, stood frozen as the janitor who'd cleaned her offices for 10 years held a syringe to her dying daughter's neck. "Now it's your daughter's turn, unless you listen to what I have to say. The next 2 hours will reveal how America's healthcare system kills more people than it saves, and why the man holding that syringe might be the only honest person in the room. Comment your city and state below. Let's see how far the truth can travel before they silence this story." The syringe didn't waver. Sophia Ashford lay seizing on the emergency room floor, foam at her lips. Eyes rolled back, 17 years old, and dying in front of 12 specialists who'd spent 6 months keeping her sick. "Security!" Dr. Patricia Chen screamed into her pager. "Code Gray, violent individual." "Shut up." Marcus's voice was quiet, deadly. The kind of quiet that made everyone freeze. "All of you, shut your mouths and listen." Victoria found her voice cold and sharp as a scalpel. "You have 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't have you shot." "Because I'm going to save your daughter's life. Then I'm going to tell you which one of these doctors has been killing her." Dr. Hastings struggled against the wall, Marcus's forearm across his throat. "He's insane." Marcus slammed him harder. "Shut up." He turned to Victoria, still holding the syringe over Sophia. "Your daughter doesn't have epilepsy. She has Wernicke encephalopathy, thiamine deficiency. Her brain is dying because nobody in this room had the balls to check her vitamin levels." "That's absurd," Dr. Hastings choked out. "We've run every test, except the one that costs $3. Marcus's laugh was bitter. "You ran $70,000 in neuroimaging. You prescribed $40,000 in medications, but nobody ordered a basic metabolic panel with thiamine levels because that would be too simple, wouldn't it? Too cheap, too obvious for a billionaire's daughter." Victoria stared at the syringe. "What's in that? Thiamine, magnesium, glucose. The only things that will stop her brain from hemorrhaging in the next 3 minutes." "He could be injecting anything," Dr. Chen warned. "Poison drugs. If I wanted to poison her, I've had 1,000 chances." Marcus met Victoria's eyes. "I clean your daughter's bathroom twice a week. I've mopped up her vomit after every meal for 6 months. I've watched her waste away while you people collected your consulting fees and pretended you gave a damn." The words hit Victoria like physical blows. "You knew she was bulimic." Everyone knew. The nursing staff knew. The housekeeping staff knew. The only people who didn't know were the 12 geniuses standing in this room getting paid 6 figures to diagnose her. Sophia's seizure was getting worse. Her lips were turning blue. "Decide," Marcus said to Victoria. "Let me save her or watch her die while they call security. You've got about 90 seconds. Dr. James Morrison, the youngest specialist, spoke up. Mrs. Ashford Wernicke encephalopathy would explain everything. The confusion, the vision problems, the seizures. "Thank you, Dr. Morrison," Dr. Hastings snapped. "I'm sure we're all grateful for a second-year resident's input." "He's right." Victoria's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. She looked at Marcus. "Do it." "Victoria, you can't be serious." "I said do it." Marcus released Dr. Hastings and dropped to his knees beside Sophia. His hands were steady as he found the vein, inserted the needle. "Someone time this. If I'm wrong, you'll know in 60 seconds. If I'm right, her breathing will stabilize, the seizure will stop, and you'll all have to explain how a janitor diagnosed what you couldn't." 40 seconds passed. Sophia's breathing evened out. 30 seconds. The seizure slowed, then stopped. 20 seconds. Her eyes opened. "Mom." The emergency room erupted. Dr. Chen was shouting into her phone. Dr. Hastings was threatening lawsuits. Two other specialists were checking Sophia's vitals with expressions of pure shock. Security burst through the doors, hands on weapons. Victoria raised one hand. Everyone fell silent. "Get out," she said softly. "All of you, except Dr. Morrison and Mr. Reed." "Victoria, this is highly inappropriate. Get out." The room cleared. Only 3 people remained with Sophia. Her mother, a second-year resident who looked terrified, and the janitor who'd just saved her life by assaulting a doctor. Victoria knelt beside her daughter. "Baby, how do you feel?" "Tired. Confused. What happened?" "You had a seizure. Mr. Reed stopped it." Sophia's eyes found Marcus. Recognition flickered. "You're the janitor. You always smile when you empty my trash." "Yes, ma'am." "You hit Dr. Hastings." "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Sophia's voice was weak but fierce. "He's an asshole." Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. Victoria didn't. "Dr. Morrison," Victoria said, not looking away from Marcus. "Is my daughter stable?" "Yes. Her vitals are normalizing. She needs hospitalization, IV thiamine nutritional rehabilitation, psychiatric evaluation for the eating disorder." "Can that wait 10 minutes? Yes. Then leave us. Tell security to stay outside. Tell them if anyone comes through that door before I say so, they're fired." The young doctor fled. Victoria stood slowly, helping Sophia onto a gurney. Her daughter was already drifting into exhausted sleep, the first real rest she'd had in months. "Now," Victoria said, turning to Marcus, "you're going to tell me everything, starting with why you assaulted my daughter's doctor before saving her life." Marcus leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only the grief he'd carried for 7 years. "Because Dr. Hastings knew." "Knew what?" "That she was dying of vitamin deficiency. And he let it happen anyway." Victoria's face went very still. "Explain." Marcus pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. His hands were shaking now. 3 months ago, I was cleaning the residence lounge. I found this in the trash." He handed it to Victoria. It was a lab requisition form. Sophia Ashford's name at the top. A complete nutritional panel ordered by Dr. Morrison. And across it, in red ink, "Cancelled, not indicated for this patient." LH, Leonard Hastings' initials. "He cancelled the test," Marcus said quietly. "The one test that would have diagnosed her 3 months ago before the permanent brain damage started." Victoria's hand trembled. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know, but I spent 3 months watching him do it over and over. Every time a resident or nurse suggested checking her nutrition, he shut it down. Every time someone questioned the epilepsy diagnosis, he pushed more seizure medications that made her worse. You could have come to me, told me. I'm a janitor with a dead daughter and a GED. Marcus's laugh was hollow. "Who would believe me? You'd think I was crazy, projecting, obsessed. So instead you assaulted a doctor and held a syringe over my daughter. I got your attention, didn't I?" The silence stretched between them. "My daughter's name was Amara," Marcus said finally. "She died at 15. Same thing, Wernicke encephalopathy, from an eating disorder nobody caught. I was a paramedic then. I saw her every day. I knew something was wrong, but I trusted the doctors. I believed they knew better than me." He looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully now. "When she died, I couldn't go back to medicine, couldn't trust myself, couldn't trust the system that killed her. So I became invisible, a janitor, someone nobody sees, nobody questions. And I spent 7 years learning everything I could about the diseases they miss, the patients they ignore, the mistakes they hide." "That's not grief," Victoria said. "That's obsession. Call it what you want. But your daughter's alive because I couldn't let another Amara die while doctors played politics with her life." Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. Dr. Leonard Hastings, 20 years at St. Catherine's, published researcher, consultant for Hansen Biotech. She stopped. Hansen Biotech. Your company's competition, Marcus said. I know. I read the business section while I'm mopping. They've been trying to acquire Ashford Pharmaceuticals for 5 years. The board keeps rejecting their offers. Victoria's voice was changing, hardening. But if I were distracted, grieving, unable to focus on company business, they'd have leverage. The board might override you. And Dr. Hastings gets what AVP position at Hansen A research grant. Does it matter? Marcus asked. He tried to kill your daughter for money. Victoria's finger hovered over her phone. I could call the police right now. Have him arrested. On what evidence? A cancelled lab form. My word against his. He's a respected physician. I'm a janitor with a history of mental health treatment after my daughter died. You were treated for depression, PTSD, grief counseling, anger management after I punched a hole through my apartment wall. Marcus met her eyes. I'm not a reliable witness, Mrs. Ashford. That's why I had to make you see it yourself. By assaulting him. By making him panic. Did you see his face when I accused him? That wasn't innocent surprise. That was guilt. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need proof. Real proof. The kind that holds up in court and destroys careers. Then you need someone who can access medical records without authorization. Someone invisible who can move through the hospital without suspicion. Marcus pushed off the wall. You need a janitor. I need a partner. Victoria's eyes were cold, calculating. I'm offering you a job, Mr. Reed, not cleaning floors, investigating this hospital, gathering evidence, finding out how deep this corruption goes. I'm not qualified. You just saved my daughter's life with a $3 vitamin while 12 specialists watched her die. You're the most qualified person I know. Your board will never approve. My board doesn't make my decisions, I do. She extended her hand. 6-month contract, full salary benefits. You report directly to me. Nobody else knows what you're really doing here. Marcus stared at her hand. And when 6 months is up, if you find proof that Dr. Hastings tried to kill my daughter, I'll make sure he never practices medicine again. If you don't, she paused. Then at least I'll know I did everything I could to get justice for Sophia. And for Amara. The sound of his daughter's name from this woman's mouth broke something in Marcus's chest. He shook her hand. One condition, he said. When this is over, we expose everything. Not just Hastings. Every doctor who missed the diagnosis. Every test that was canceled. Every patient like Sophia who gets ignored because their symptoms don't fit the expensive diagnosis. Agreed. Security was knocking on the door. Dr. Hastings was demanding to be let in. The hospital's lawyers were probably already drafting lawsuits. But inside that room, a CEO and a janitor looked at each other with the understanding of two people who'd both lost daughters, one to death, one almost. There's something else you should know, Marcus said. Your daughter has maybe 6 months before the brain damage becomes permanent. The treatment is intense, painful. She'll fight you every step. I've built a pharmaceutical empire from scratch. I can handle my teenage daughter. No. Marcus's voice was gentle. You can't. That's why she got sick. She was handling you. The words hit Victoria like a slap. Before she could respond, Marcus continued. She needs a treatment team. Nutritionist, therapist, someone who's been through this and survived it. And she needs a mother who admits she doesn't have all the answers. Victoria's mask cracked. For the first time since Marcus had known her, he saw the fear underneath. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. I don't know how to be the kind of mother who saves her daughter. I only know how to be the kind who builds empires. Then learn. You've got 6 months. The door burst open. Dr. Hastings, flanked by security and hospital administrators, all of them shouting, lawyers, threats, consequences. Victoria Ashford stepped in front of Marcus, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who'd crushed bigger threats than this. Mr. Reed is my personal medical consultant, effective immediately. Anyone who has a problem with that can discuss it with my legal team. Dr. Hastings, you're suspended pending investigation. Dr. Morrison, you're now my daughter's attending physician. Everyone else get out of my way. And they did. Because Victoria Ashford hadn't built an empire by asking permission. She'd built it by taking what she needed. And right now, she needed the janitor who'd punched a doctor, held a syringe over her daughter, and forced her to see the truth she'd been too busy to notice. Her daughter was dying. And the man who saved her was exactly as broken as she was. The hospital's executive conference room had witnessed hostile takeovers, malpractice settlements, and career-ending confrontations, but it had never seen anything like this. Marcus stood in his janitor's uniform, while 12 physicians in $1,000 suits stared at him like he'd crawled out of the biohazard disposal. Victoria sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed, her daughter sleeping under medical observation 3 floors below. Dr. Leonard Hastings spoke first, his jaw already bruising where Marcus had hit him. "This is absurd, Victoria. You're letting your emotional state cloud your judgment. This man assaulted me. He should be in police custody, not sitting in our medical review board meeting." "The only person going to be in custody is you," Victoria replied calmly. "Marcus, show them." Marcus slid the cancelled lab requisition across the polished table. It landed in front of Dr. Patricia Chen, who picked it up, read it, and went pale. "This is a violation of protocol," she said quietly. Dr. Morrison ordered a comprehensive nutritional panel. Someone with administrative authority canceled it. "Someone initialed LH, Marcus said, looking directly at Hastings. "Care to explain why you prevented the one test that would have diagnosed Sophia 3 months ago?" "I don't have to explain my clinical decisions to a janitor." "You'll explain them to the medical board," Victoria said, "and the FDA, and the Justice Department. Because I've spent the last hour making phone calls, and it turns out you're not the only doctor who's been canceling inconvenient tests." The room went silent. "What are you talking about, Doctor?" Thomas Bradley, the hospital's chief of medicine, demanded. Marcus pulled out a folder. 7 years of cleaning had taught him exactly where doctors kept the files they didn't want found. Over the past 18 months, 12 patients under Dr. Hastings's care have had nutritional panels canceled. 8 of them developed complications that required extended hospitalization. 4 died of conditions that would have been caught with basic vitamin screening. "That's circumstantial at best," Hastings said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Is it?" Victoria pulled up something on her tablet. "Because I've also discovered that you're a paid consultant for Hansen Biotech. $200,000 a year plus stock options. The same company that's been trying to acquire my pharmaceutical division. Consulting arrangements are perfectly legal. Not when you're using your position to sabotage my family while tanking my company's stock price." Victoria's voice could have frozen nitrogen. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? 6 months of medical bills, divided attention, public concern about my leadership, the board was starting to question my ability to run the company. And then coincidentally, Hansen increases their acquisition offer by 30%. Dr. Bradley leaned forward. "Leonard, tell me this isn't true." Hastings said nothing. "Tell me you didn't deliberately misdiagnose a 17-year-old girl for money. I provided the best care based on available evidence. You canceled the test that would have saved her." Marcus's voice was quiet, deadly. "Just like you canceled the test that could have saved my daughter 7 years ago." Every head in the room turned to him. "Amara Reed," Marcus continued. "Age 15. Patient of Dr. Leonard Hastings at Detroit Memorial. Presenting with confusion, ataxia, vision problems. Dr. Hastings diagnosed juvenile depression, prescribed SSRIs. She died 4 weeks later of Wernicke encephalopathy. Vitamin deficiency that could have been reversed with a $3 blood test. The color drained from Hastings' face. You remember her now, don't you? Marcus took a step closer. Young black girl from a poor neighborhood. Single father who worked as a paramedic. We didn't have insurance that covered extensive testing, so you put her on antidepressants and told me she'd grow out of it. I don't recall every patient. You remember mine. Because her father called you 17 times in 3 weeks begging you to run more tests. Because he showed up at your office with research articles about Wernicke encephalopathy, and you had security escort him out. Because he filed a complaint with the medical board that got dismissed because a paramedic's opinion didn't matter against a respected physician's. Victoria was watching Marcus with something like horror and respect. You knew who he was when you came to work here. You knew. I knew. I spent 7 years mopping floors and watching him do the same thing to other patients. Dismissing symptoms, canceling tests. Always with poor patients. Always with people who couldn't fight back. Marcus turned to Hastings. But you got greedy. You thought you could do it to a billionaire's daughter and nobody would notice. You thought money would blind her like it blinds everyone. This is slander, Hastings said, but he was standing now backing toward the door. It's truth. Dr. James Morrison entered the conference room, laptop in hand. I pulled 7 years of Dr. Hastings's patient records. Marcus is right. There's a pattern. Low-income patients. Minority patients, anyone without resources, they get substandard care. Tests get canceled. Diagnoses get delayed. Dr. Morrison, you're a second-year resident. Dr. Chen said sharply. You have no authority to access. I gave him authority. Victoria interrupted. As of an hour ago, Dr. Morrison is my daughter's attending physician and has full access to any records relevant to her care, which includes establishing patterns of negligence in her previous treatment team. Morrison clicked his laptop. A spreadsheet appeared on the conference room screen. Names, dates, canceled tests, outcomes. The evidence was damning. 38 patients over 7 years, Morrison said. Nutritional panels canceled without medical justification. 12 developed serious complications. 6 died. All of them were from low-income backgrounds or minority communities. None of their families had the resources to sue. Until now, Marcus said. Until he tried it on someone who could fight back. Dr. Bradley stood slowly. Leonard, I'm suspending your privileges immediately. Security will escort you out. If you attempt to access hospital systems or contact any current patients, I'll have you arrested. Thomas, you're making a mistake. The mistake was not seeing this sooner. Bradley looked sick. How many families are grieving because we didn't pay attention? How many patients died because they were poor, or black, or just unlucky enough to land in your care? Hastings looked around the room, seeing no allies, no escape. You can't prove intent. Medical judgment is subjective. Any lawyer will tell you. I don't need a lawyer, Victoria said. I need a press conference. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in America will know that Dr. Leonard Hastings deliberately misdiagnosed patients for profit. That St. Catherine's Hospital, the hospital Hanson Biotech wants to acquire, along with my company, has been systematically providing substandard care to vulnerable populations. That will destroy the hospital's reputation, Dr. Chen protested. Good. Maybe it should be destroyed. Maybe we all should be. Victoria stood gathering her things. I'm moving my daughter to a different facility. Dr. Morrison, you're coming with us. Marcus, I'll need you to... No. Marcus didn't move. I'm staying here. Victoria stared. What? You're leaving. Taking Sophia somewhere safe, somewhere she'll get real care. That's the right move. Marcus looked around the conference room. But there are other patients here. Other Sophias, other Amaras. People who don't have a billionaire mother to rescue them. Someone needs to make sure they don't get the same treatment. Marcus, you're not qualified to... I'm qualified to watch, to document, to make noise when something's wrong. He met her eyes. You gave me 6 months. Let me use them. Dr. Bradley cleared his throat. Mrs. Ashford, if I might suggest, we need oversight. Independent oversight. Someone who's not part of our system, who can identify problems we're too close to see. You want to hire a janitor as your hospital watchdog? I want to hire the man who saw what 12 specialists missed, who cared enough to risk his freedom to save a patient. Bradley looked at Marcus. It won't be easy. The medical staff will resent you. They'll question every decision fight, every recommendation. They already resent me. I'm the janitor who made them look incompetent. You made us look negligent, Dr. Chen said quietly. There's a difference, and you were right to do it. Victoria studied Marcus for a long moment. You're sure about this? Someone has to stay. Someone has to make sure Hastings wasn't the only one. Marcus paused. And someone has to be here for the families who can't afford to move their kids to fancy private hospitals. The ones who have to trust St. Catherine's because it's the only option they have. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Fine. Victoria pulled out a contract, scribbled something, signed it. 6 months. You report to me weekly. Any sign of negligence, any canceled test, any patient being ignored, you call me directly. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. Understood. Marcus took the contract. His hands were steadier now. Understood. And Marcus, when this is over, when we've cleaned up this mess, you're going back to school. Getting your medical degree, officially. I'm 43 years old. My father went to medical school at 52. Age is an excuse, not a barrier. She headed for the door, then paused. Thank you. For my daughter, for seeing what I was too busy to see. Thank you for listening. Most parents don't. After she left, the conference room slowly emptied. Doctors avoiding Marcus's eyes, security escorting Hastings out in disgrace, administrators already calculating the PR damage. Only Dr. Morrison remained. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen, the young doctor said. Probably both. Marcus looked at the canceled lab form still sitting on the table. 7 years old, his daughter's name at the top. You really pull all those records yourself. Had help. The nursing staff. They've known something was wrong for years, but nobody would listen to them either. Morrison hesitated. I'm sorry about your daughter. Me too. Will you really monitor the whole hospital? That's an impossible job for one person. Marcus smiled, tired, but genuine. Good thing I'm not doing it alone then. The next morning, Marcus showed up for his shift at 6 a.m. like always. But instead of his janitor's uniform, he wore business casual and an ID badge that read, Patient Advocate. The charge nurse, Rita Washington, saw him first. Well, look at you, moving up in the world. Still going to need your help, Rita. Can't watch every floor at once. Honey, the nursing staff has been waiting 7 years for someone to actually listen to us. You want help? You got an army. She handed him a clipboard. Starting with these 15 patients. All of them have been here longer than necessary. All of them have had tests canceled or delayed. Some of them are starting to look like Sophia Ashford did. Marcus took the clipboard. 15 names, 15 people someone had decided weren't worth the full diagnostic workup. Let's start with the kids, he said. They're the most vulnerable. Rita nodded. 4th floor pediatrics. There's a 10-year-old boy, Jamie Chen. Been here 3 weeks with undiagnosed abdominal pain. They keep saying it's anxiety. What do you think it is? I think it's a bowel obstruction they're missing because they're not looking hard enough. His parents are immigrants, limited English. They trust whatever the doctors say. Marcus headed for the elevator. Not anymore. 4th floor pediatrics smelled like disinfectant and fear. Marcus had mopped these halls 1,000 times invisible in his uniform. Now nurses and doctors did double takes as he walked past. Room 412. Jamie Chen lay curled in a fetal position, his mother sitting beside him, looking exhausted and helpless. Marcus knocked softly. Mrs. Chen, I'm Marcus Reed. I'm the hospital's new patient advocate. She looked up confused. I don't understand. What is advocate? I make sure your son gets the care he needs. Can I examine him? You're a doctor. I'm someone who pays attention. Marcus approached the bed slowly. Hey, Jamie, I'm Marcus. That pain you've been having, can you show me exactly where it hurts? The boy pointed to his lower right side. Marcus gently pressed the area. Jamie gasped. How long has this been constant? 3 days, Mrs. Chen said. Getting worse. But the doctors say it's just stress from school. It's not stress. Marcus pulled out his phone, dialing. Dr. Morrison, I need an emergency surgical consult on Pediatrics 412. Suspected appendicitis, possibly ruptured. Patient's been here 3 weeks with escalating abdominal pain in the right lower quadrant. Marcus, you can't just order surgical consults. I can recommend them. You can order them. How fast can you get up here? Morrison arrived in 6 minutes. 1 examination, 1 emergency CT scan, 1 frantic call to surgery. Jamie Chen had a burst appendix that had been leaking infection for at least 2 days. How did we miss this? Morrison demanded of the pediatric attending. Dr. Sarah Winters looked defensive. He presented with anxiety symptoms. His mother seemed overly concerned. His mother is concerned because her son's appendix exploded while you were dismissing her. Marcus kept his voice level, professional. She's been telling nurses for 3 days that something was seriously wrong. Why didn't anyone listen? We did listen. We examined him multiple times. But you didn't believe her, because she's an immigrant, because she doesn't speak perfect English, because you assumed she was just an overprotective mother who couldn't possibly know her own child's body. Dr. Winters opened her mouth, closed it. She had no defense because he was right. He's in surgery now, Morrison said. If we'd waited another day, he could have died from sepsis. File a report, Marcus said. Complete timeline, every missed opportunity, every time a nurse's concern was dismissed. Mrs. Chen deserves to know exactly how close she came to losing her son. After they left, Mrs. Chen grabbed Marcus's hand. You saved him. Thank you. The nurses saved him. Rita Washington wouldn't let me ignore his case. Thank her. But she was crying, holding his hand like he was the only solid thing in her collapsing world. In my country, we say you have good eyes. You see what others cannot. Marcus thought of Amara, of Sophia, of all the patients dismissed because they weren't important enough, wealthy enough, white enough to matter. I just see people, Mrs. Chen. That's all. Just people who deserve care. He visited 14 more patients that day. Found 3 missed diagnoses, 2 dangerous drug interactions, 1 patient being discharged before she could safely walk. Every case he called Dr. Morrison. Every case they fixed it together. By 5 p.m., the medical staff was in open rebellion. Dr. Winters cornered him in the hallway. You can't just override medical decisions. You're not qualified. I'm not overriding anything. I'm asking questions. When did that become controversial in medicine? You're creating chaos, undermining authority. I'm preventing malpractice. If that undermines your authority, maybe you should examine why. She flushed red. I've been practicing pediatrics for 15 years. And in those 15 years, how many Jamie Chens have you missed? How many parents did you dismiss as overprotective when their instincts were right? How dare you? I dare because I buried my 15-year-old daughter after doctors dismissed her symptoms. I dare because I'm tired of watching families destroyed by medical arrogance. And I dare because someone needs to. Dr. Winters walked away without responding. But Marcus saw her stop at the nurse's station, saw her pull up Jamie Chen's chart, saw her face change as she realized how many red flags she'd ignored. Maybe she'd learn. Maybe she wouldn't. But at least now, she was paying attention. Rita found him at 6 p.m. slumped in the break room. You made some enemies today. Good. Comfortable doctors are dangerous doctors. You also made some friends. Dr. Morrison asked me to tell you he's ordering a full audit of every patient currently admitted, checking for missed diagnoses, canceled tests, Anything that looks like Hastings' pattern. Marcus closed his eyes. How many patients is that? 347. Jesus. Yeah. Rita sat beside him. Marcus, you need to pace yourself. You can't fix everything in one day. I can't leave them to suffer in the meantime either. Nobody's asking you to, but you're no good to anyone if you burn out in week 1. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Sophia awake and asking for you. Says you're the only person who didn't lie to her. Can you visit? Marcus showed Rita the message. Go, she said. That girl needs to see that someone cares about her as a person, not a patient. I'm not her father. No, but you're what she needs right now. Someone who sees her. Really sees her, not just her symptoms or her mother's money. Marcus took the subway to Riverview Private Hospital, where Sophia had been transferred. The contrast was stark. Everything newer, cleaner, quieter. Money bought comfort, even in suffering. Sophia's room looked more like a hotel suite. She sat propped up on pillows 4 in her arm, but alert and focused. You came, she said. You asked, I came. Mom said you punched Dr. Hastings in the face. I did. Don't recommend it as a long-term strategy. She almost smiled. Why did you do it? Risk everything to save me. Marcus pulled up a chair. You want the complicated answer or the simple one? Both. Simple answer. Because I could. Because I saw what the doctors missed, and I couldn't watch you die when I knew how to save you. And the complicated one. Because 7 years ago, I watched my daughter die of the same thing. And I've spent every day since then trying to make sure no other father goes through that. Trying to make Amara's death mean something. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Dr. Morrison said you're staying at St. Catherine's, that you could have left with Mom, but you stayed to help other patients. Someone has to. Why you've already lost so much. Why keep fighting? Marcus looked at this 17-year-old girl who'd almost died because doctors didn't see her suffering, who'd starved herself trying to be perfect enough for a mother who was never satisfied, who'd been used as a pawn in corporate warfare and nearly paid with her life. Because girls like you deserve better, he said simply. You deserve doctors who listen. You deserve a system that cares more about healing than profit. You deserve to be seen as a person, not a diagnosis or a dollar sign or a problem to manage. I'm not like those other patients. I have money privilege. And you almost died anyway. That's the point, Sophia. If the system can fail you with all your advantages, imagine what it does to people with none. She looked at her hands, the IV line, the monitors tracking her healing. Mom wants me to go to therapy. Says I need to work through the eating disorder, the control issues, all of it. Your mom's right. But she's part of the problem. Her constant pressure to be perfect, to represent the company, to never show weakness. She knows. We talked about it. She's not perfect either. She's just a mother who almost lost her daughter and is trying to figure out how to do better. Will she do better? Marcus thought of Victoria Ashford, the woman who'd hired him on the spot, who'd believed him over 12 specialists, who was now systematically dismantling the corruption in her own company's healthcare system. I think she's trying. That's all anyone can do. Sophia leaned back against her pillows. The nurses said you found a boy with a ruptured appendix today, that he'd been in pain for weeks and nobody listened to his mother. Jamie Chen. He's in surgery now. He'll be okay. Because of you. Because his mother wouldn't stop fighting for him. I just amplified her voice. That's what you do, isn't it? Make people listen to the voices they ignore. Marcus stood to leave. Get some rest. Focus on healing. The world will still be broken when you're better. Marcus. She stopped him at the door. Thank you for seeing me, for not giving up even when everyone else did. Thank you for surviving. Gives me hope that the fight's worth it. On the subway home, exhausted and aching, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Reed. This is Jennifer Hastings, Leonard's wife. He almost hung up. Please don't disconnect. I need to talk to you about my husband. I have nothing to say. He did it for us. The consulting money, the decisions he made, it was all for our family. Marcus felt rage building. So that makes it okay. He killed patients for your mortgage. No. No, it doesn't. Her voice broke. But I need you to understand he's not a monster. He's a doctor who got lost, who convinced himself that some patients mattered more than others, that wealthy patients deserved more resources because they contributed more to society. That's eugenics. I know. I know what it is. But he didn't see it that way. He saw it as triage, allocating limited resources where they do the most good. Limited resources, Marcus repeated. Like vitamin tests that cost $3. Silence. Mrs. Hastings, your husband let my daughter die because we were poor. He nearly let Sophia Ashford die for money. He's not lost. He's exactly what he chose to be. There's something else. Something I think you should know. Marcus waited. Leonard kept files, records of other doctors doing the same thing. Canceling tests, delaying treatments, steering wealthy patients to specialists who paid referral fees. He wasn't working alone. He was part of a network. The subway car lurched. Marcus grabbed a pole for balance. Why are you telling me this? Because what he did was wrong. Because I can't live with knowing how many people died because my husband valued our comfort over their lives. She took a shaky breath. The files are in his home office, safe behind the medical texts. Combination is our wedding date. I'm staying with my sister. The house is empty. Mrs. Hastings, I can't testify against him. I'm his wife, but I can make sure someone finds the evidence. Someone who will actually do something with it. She hung up. Marcus stared at his phone. This was beyond his authority, beyond his job description. This was evidence that could bring down not just Hastings, but dozens of doctors, maybe entire hospital systems. He dialed Victoria. She answered on the first ring. Tell me. He told her everything. I'll send a legal team to secure the files. We'll need independent investigators, federal oversight. Victoria, if this is as big as she says, we're talking about systemic corruption, years of deliberate malpractice, hundreds, maybe thousands of victims. I know. Your company's hospital contracts could be implicated. Your board might be involved. This could destroy everything you've built. Then it deserves to be destroyed. Her voice was steel. My daughter almost died because I was too focused on protecting my empire to see the rot underneath. I won't make that mistake again. You could lose everything. I already almost lost everything. Everything else is just money and power. Sophia taught me what really matters. Marcus closed his eyes. Okay, let's burn it down. Meet me at Hastings' house. 1 hour. Bring Dr. Morrison. We're going to need medical expertise to understand what we're looking at. Victoria, this is breaking and entering. It's recovering evidence, and I have very expensive lawyers who'll make sure it's legal. 1 hour. She hung up. Marcus sat in the subway car watching the darkness outside blur past. Somewhere in this city were families mourning loved ones who died from deliberate negligence. Somewhere were patients suffering because doctors valued profit over healing. Somewhere were children like Amara, like Sophia, like Jamie Chen, whose lives depended on whether anyone was paying attention. He thought of his daughter's face, her smile, her endless questions about how the body worked. She'd wanted to be a doctor, had studied biology and chemistry with fierce determination, had believed medicine was about helping people. She never got to learn how wrong she was about that. But maybe, just maybe, Marcus could help make it right. Make it into what Amara had believed it should be. His phone buzzed. Text from Rita. Night nurse just called. We have another Sophia, 16-year-old girl presenting with confusion and ataxia. Doctors want to diagnose psychological stress. Mother's insisting it's physical. They're not listening. Marcus texted back. Run thiamine levels. Check B12. Complete nutritional panel. I'll be there in 2 hours. Rita. They won't order it without a doctor's approval. Marcus. Then get Dr. Morrison. Tell him it's urgent. Tell him we're not missing another one. Rita. Already on it. Go do what you need to do. We'll hold down the fort. The subway stopped. Marcus got off heading toward Hastings' house, toward evidence that could change everything. Behind him in hospitals across the city, nurses were paying attention, asking questions, refusing to let patients be dismissed. The revolution had started, and it had started with a janitor who refused to be invisible anymore. Hastings' house sat in one of those neighborhoods where lawns looked professionally maintained and nobody walked after dark unless they belonged there. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, feeling every eye behind every curtain, tracking his presence. A black man in this neighborhood at 8 p.m. was automatically suspicious consultant badge or not. Victoria's Mercedes pulled up 3 minutes later. She stepped out in jeans and a dark sweater, her usual armor of designer suits abandoned for something that wouldn't stand out. Doctor. Morrison emerged from the passenger side, looking terrified. "This is insane," Morrison whispered. "We could be arrested." "We won't be." Victoria pulled out her phone, showing a text chain. "I've been in contact with FBI agent Sarah Mendez. She's investigating healthcare fraud connected to Hansen Biotech. Mrs. Hastings called her 20 minutes ago and gave verbal consent to search the premises. Technically, we're securing evidence before it can be destroyed." "Technically," Marcus repeated. "And unofficially." "Unofficially, we're 3 people who are tired of watching the system protect monsters." She walked toward the front door. Mrs. Hastings left it unlocked. The house was exactly what Marcus expected. Expensive furniture, family photos on the walls, evidence of comfortable lives built on other people's suffering. In one photo, Hastings smiled beside his wife and 2 teenage sons at some beach vacation. He looked like a normal dad. That was the horror of it. "Office is upstairs," Victoria said, already moving. They found it at the end of the hall. Medical texts lined the walls, diplomas hung in frames, a desk covered with patient files that Hastings shouldn't have taken home. Morrison immediately started photographing everything with his phone. "The safe," Marcus said, pulling books off the shelf. "Behind the medical texts," she said. He found it 5 minutes later, hidden behind a row of neurology journals, punched in the combination Mrs. Hastings had given him. The door swung open. Inside were 3 external hard drives, 2 folders stuffed with documents, and a leather-bound journal. Victoria reached for the journal, opened it, started reading. Her face went pale. "What is it?" Morrison asked. She handed it to Marcus without speaking. The first entry was dated 9 years ago. Hastings's handwriting precise and controlled. "Meeting with Dr. Patricia Chen and Dr. Thomas Bradley. We've agreed that certain cost-saving measures are necessary given the hospital's budget constraints. Low-probability diagnoses will require administrative approval before testing. Nutritional panels, genetic screening, extended imaging for uninsured or Medicaid patients must be justified in writing." Marcus flipped pages. The entries continued, becoming more explicit. "Hansen Biotech representatives approached me about consulting arrangement. They're interested in how resource allocation decisions are made at the hospital level. Compensation package is generous. Sarah doesn't need to know the details." More pages. More entries. Amara Reed case concluded. Father filed complaint with medical board. Bradley assured me it won't go anywhere. Paramedics' word against mine, and the patient was non-compliant with treatment recommendations anyway. Some families can't be helped because they don't follow medical advice. Marcus's hands shook. Morrison grabbed the journal before he could tear it apart. "He blamed you," Morrison said quietly. "He blamed your daughter for dying when he killed her." "Keep reading." Victoria's voice was hollow. She'd moved to the hard drives, plugging one into Hastings's computer. The screen filled with spreadsheets. "There are 47 doctors listed here. 47 physicians across 6 hospital systems who've been systematically denying care to low-income patients." "Jesus Christ," Morrison breathed, looking at the screen. "These are patient names, conditions, tests that were canceled. This is organized. This is deliberate. It's genocide, Marcus said flatly. Medical genocide against the poor. It's worse than that. Victoria clicked through files. Look at the compensation structure. Every canceled test, every delayed diagnosis, every early discharge for a Medicaid patient, the doctors get bonuses. Hanson Biotech is paying them to keep healthcare costs down in hospitals they're targeting for acquisition. Morrison was reading the journal over Marcus's shoulder. He writes about it like it's logical, like he's making tough but necessary decisions. Patient presented with symptoms consistent with malnutrition, but family history suggested malingering. Recommended psychiatric evaluation instead of expensive metabolic panel. That's a 15-year-old girl. She died 3 weeks later of diabetic ketoacidosis. How many? Marcus asked Victoria. How many patients? She kept scrolling. The spreadsheets track 18 months. In that time, across 6 hospitals, 374 patients had critical tests canceled or delayed. 112 died. The rest developed complications that required extended hospitalization, which drove up costs and made the hospitals look poorly managed, Morrison said, understanding dawning, making them vulnerable to acquisition by Hanson. And once Hanson owns them, they restructure with the same doctors who created the crisis in the first place. Victoria's voice was shaking with rage. It's a perfect scheme. Profit on both ends while patients die in the middle. Marcus's phone rang. Rita. Marcus, we have a problem. The 16-year-old I texted you about, her mother just signed her out AMA. Said she doesn't trust the hospital anymore after what happened to the Ashford girl. She's taking her daughter to County General. Did Dr. Morrison order the thiamine? He tried. Dr. Winters blocked it. Said we can't just run expensive tests because a janitor has a hunch. Marcus looked at Morrison, who'd gone pale hearing his name. Put Dr. Winters on the phone. A pause. Then Dr. Winters' clipped voice. Mr. Reed, I don't take orders from. The girl has Wernicke encephalopathy. She needs IV thiamine in the next 6 hours, or she'll have permanent brain damage. Doctor, Morrison is ordering the test under his authority as an attending physician. If you block it again, I'm calling the medical board and the press and telling them you're part of the same scheme that nearly killed Sophia Ashford. Silence. You're bluffing. Am I want to bet a teenage girl's life on it? More silence. Then, fine. The test is approved, but you're making powerful enemies, Mr. Reed. Good. I'm tired of the powerless ones dying. He hung up. Victoria was staring at him. You can't threaten other doctors every time someone questions you. Watch me. I'm done being polite while people die. Marcus. No. You hired me to fix this. That's what I'm doing. If doctors like Winters can't handle having their authority questioned, they can quit. There are plenty of good doctors who'd love their jobs. Morrison cleared his throat. He's right, Mrs. Ashford. The medical establishment protects its own, even when we're wrong. Someone needs to be the hammer that breaks that protection. Being a hammer means you'll get hit back, Victoria warned. Then I'll get hit. I've survived worse. Victoria's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, her face hardening. Understood. We're on our way. She hung up. That was Agent Mendez. She's at the house with a forensic team. We need to hand over everything we've found and give statements. Will she actually prosecute? Marcus asked. She says yes. Federal healthcare fraud conspiracy to commit murder racketeering. If even half of what's in these files is provable, dozens of doctors will face prison time. If it's provable, Morrison said. Medical decisions are subjective. Defense attorneys will argue clinical judgment, budget constraints, standard of care. Which is why we need victims willing to testify. Marcus picked up the journal. Families who can say, my mother died because they canceled her test. My son suffered because they delayed his diagnosis. Real people with real names, not just statistics. That means finding them, Victoria said. going through years of records, tracking down families, asking them to relive their worst moments. I'll do it. Marcus met her eyes. I've already lived my worst moment. I can help them through theirs. Agent Mendez arrived with a team of federal agents who photographed, documented, and seized everything in Hastings's office. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the weary demeanor of someone who'd seen too much corruption. "This is substantial," she said, scrolling through one of the hard drives. "But Mr. Reed is right. We need victims. Juries don't convict on spreadsheets. They convict on mothers crying about dead children." "That's cynical," Morrison said. "That's reality. Medical fraud cases are hard to prosecute because juries trust doctors. We need to break that trust with human stories." "I can get you stories," Marcus said. "Give me the patient list and 3 weeks." You realize these families might not want to talk to you. Some of them have spent years trying to move past their loss. And some of them have spent years knowing something was wrong, that their loved one's death wasn't just bad luck. They deserve to know the truth. Mendez studied him. "You're the father, the one from the journal entry. Amara Reed." Marcus nodded. "I'm sorry. What happened to your daughter was criminal negligence at minimum. At minimum. But I can't get her back. I can only make sure it means something. That other families get justice even if mine didn't." "Okay." Mendez handed him a flash drive. "Patient list is on here. Names, dates, conditions. If you can get me 20 families willing to testify, I can build a case that puts Hastings and his network away for decades." "I'll get you 50. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus became a ghost-haunting grief. He visited homes where photos of the dead still sat on mantels. He sat in kitchens while mothers cried about sons who'd complained of pain nobody believed. He listened to fathers describe daughters who'd faded, while doctors shrugged and suggested psychiatric care. Each story was Amara's story. Each face was her face. Mrs. Gloria Henderson, whose 32-year-old son Marcus died of a pulmonary embolism after complaining of leg pain for 2 weeks. They said he was just sore from working construction. He was dead 4 days later. Blood clot in his lung. A simple ultrasound would have caught it. "Did anyone order the ultrasound?" Marcus asked gently. "His doctor said it wasn't necessary. That my son was too young and healthy for blood clots. That he was probably just trying to get pain medication." She wiped her eyes. "My son never took drugs in his life. He just wanted someone to listen." Carlos Rivera, whose 15-year-old daughter Maria had seizures that were dismissed as attention-seeking behavior. She was a straight-A student, never caused trouble. But when she started having episodes at school, they sent her to the counselor, not a neurologist. By the time someone ordered an EEG, the brain tumor was inoperable. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, inadequate words for unsurvivable loss. Are you really sorry, or are you just collecting stories to make yourself feel better?" The anger was valid. Marcus took it without defending himself. "I'm sorry because my daughter died the same way. Because doctors dismissed her symptoms until it was too late. Because I trusted a system that treated her like she was disposable." He paused. "I can't bring Maria back. I can't bring Amara back. But I can help put the people responsible in prison. If you're willing to testify." Carlos stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Tell me what you need." Yet Marcus collected 53 stories, 53 families whose loved ones had been killed by deliberate negligence. Each one agreed to testify. Each one wanted justice even if it couldn't bring resurrection. He delivered the files to Agent Mendez in her office downtown. She spent 2 hours reading through them, her expression growing grimmer with each page. "This is going to be the biggest medical fraud case in federal history," she said finally. "We're talking about a conspiracy that spans multiple states, involves hundreds of doctors, and killed potentially thousands of patients over a decade. Can you win? With these testimonies?" "Yes. But Marcus, you need to prepare for what's coming. The medical establishment will fight back, hard. They'll attack you, the victims, anyone who threatens their power. Let them come. They'll say you're a disgruntled janitor with a grudge, that you're manipulating grieving families for attention, that you're not qualified to judge medical decisions. All of that's probably true except the last part. I'm supremely qualified to judge medical decisions because I've seen what happens when they're wrong. Mendez smiled grimly. The trial starts in 4 months. Grand jury indictments are coming down next week. 47 doctors, 12 hospital administrators, 6 pharmaceutical company executives. This is going to be everywhere. It was. The indictments hit the news like a bomb. Medical fraud conspiracy. Systematic denial of care. Hundreds of preventable deaths. The story dominated every news cycle. Marcus's name was in every article. Former janitor exposes massive healthcare fraud. Single father whose daughter died becomes whistleblower. Hospital employee discovers conspiracy that killed thousands. His phone rang constantly. News requests, interview offers, book deals. He ignored all of them except one. Sophia Ashford called on a Tuesday evening. "I saw the news," she said. "You did it. You actually did it. We did it. You were the catalyst. If you hadn't almost died, I never would have punched Hastings. Never would have gotten Victoria's attention." Mom's freaking out. The stock prices for every hospital chain involved are crashing. Hansen Biotech is under investigation. Her board is trying to distance themselves from the whole mess. "How are you feeling?" "Physically better. The nutritional therapy is working. I've gained 7 pounds. My therapist says I'm making progress on the control issues." She paused. "Emotionally, I'm angry. I'm angry that I almost died because I was a pawn in corporate warfare. I'm angry that other kids did die. I'm angry that it took someone like you to make people pay attention. Use that anger. Transform it into something productive." "Like what?" "Like becoming a doctor who actually listens to patients. Like being part of the system that fixes what's broken instead of enabling it." "I'm 17. I haven't even started college." Neither had Amara. She wanted to be a doctor too. Wanted to help people. You could do that for her. Be what she didn't get to be. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Did she know, before she died, did she know what was happening to her? Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. She knew something was wrong. She kept telling me she felt like her brain was in fog, that she couldn't think clearly, that her body wasn't listening to her anymore. I told her the doctors would figure it out, that she just needed to be patient. But they didn't figure it out. No. And by the time I realized they weren't going to, it was too late. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry Amara didn't get the chance I got. Me too. But Sophia, don't waste it. Don't waste the second chance you got. Too many kids don't get one. After he hung up, Marcus sat in his apartment staring at Amara's photo on the wall. She was 14 in the picture, healthy and smiling before everything went wrong. Before the system failed her. Before her father failed her. I'm trying, baby girl, he whispered. I'm trying to make it mean something. His phone buzzed. Text from Rita. County General just admitted the 16-year-old with Wernicke encephalopathy. Treatment started in time. She's going to be okay. You saved another one. Marcus typed back, we saved another one. None of this works without people like you paying attention. Rita. Meet me at McClellan's bar. You need a drink, and I need to tell you something. An hour later, Marcus sat across from Rita in a booth at the back of a bar where hospital staff went to complain about their shifts. She slid a folder across the table. What's this? Patient records from County General St. Catherine's and Mercy West. 3 hospitals, same pattern we saw with Hastings. Marcus opened the folder. More canceled tests. More delayed diagnoses. More preventable deaths. These are all recent. Past 6 months. That's the problem. Rita leaned forward. The indictment scared some doctors straight. But others, they just got more careful. They're still canceling tests, still denying care. They're just better at justifying it now. Who's doing it? Different doctors. Younger ones mostly. Residents and junior attendings who are desperate to impress administration with cost-saving measures. They watched Hastings get caught and learned the wrong lesson. Which is, don't get caught, don't keep records, don't leave evidence. Just quietly make the same decisions and hope nobody's paying attention. Marcus felt exhausted. We can't fight everyone. The trial hasn't even started yet, and I'm already burned out. Then we need more people like you. People who can watch the watchdogs. People who know what to look for. Patient advocates. Exactly. Every hospital needs someone with medical knowledge who's not part of the medical staff. Someone whose only job is catching what gets missed. That'll never happen. Hospitals will never voluntarily hire people to question their doctors. Then we make them. Get it written into law. Make patient advocacy a required position funded independently with authority to override medical decisions when there's evidence of negligence. Marcus stared at her. That's ambitious. So was taking down 47 doctors. You did that. Why not this? Because I'm one person, Rita. I can't change the entire healthcare system. Not alone. But with Victoria Ashford's money, Agent Mendez's legal power, Dr. Morrison's medical credibility, and all the families who want to make sure nobody else goes through what they did. You're not alone, Marcus. You're leading an army. He thought about that. An army of the bereaved, the angry, the determined. People who'd watched the system fail and decided to fix it instead of accepting it. Okay, let's do it. But not tonight. Tonight I'm going to have one drink, go home, and sleep for 12 hours. Then we'll change the world. Rita raised her glass. To Amara and all the others. To the ones we couldn't save, and the ones we still can. They drank in silence, two warriors in an impossible war, too tired to quit, too angry to surrender. Across the city, in a hospital room at Riverview, Private Sophia Ashford lay awake thinking about medical school applications. About becoming the doctor Amara never got to be. About using her privilege to protect people who had none. In a federal building downtown, Agent Mendez reviewed testimony transcripts and built a case that would reshape American healthcare. In a suburban home, Victoria Ashford sat at her daughter's bedside and wondered how she'd been so blind for so long. How she'd built an empire while missing what mattered most. And in a small apartment filled with medical journals and memories, Marcus Reed looked at his daughter's photo and made her a promise. I won't stop. Not until it's fixed. Not until no other father has to watch his daughter die while doctors look the other way. I promise, baby girl. This means something. Your life meant something. The photo didn't answer, but in the quiet of that moment, Marcus felt something shift. Not peace, he'd never have peace, but purpose, direction, a reason to keep fighting even when the fight seemed endless. His phone buzzed one more time. Text from an unknown number. Mr. Reed, this is Jamie Chen's mother. My son came home from hospital today. He is healthy because of you. I wanted to say thank you is not enough, but I wanted to say it anyway. Thank you for seeing my son, for making them listen, for caring when nobody else did. You saved his life. I will never forget. Marcus read the message 3 times, then texted back, take care of him, Mrs. Chen. And if anyone ever dismisses your concerns about his health again, you call me immediately. Nobody gets to ignore you. Not anymore. He saved her number, added it to a growing list of families he'd helped, families he'd promised to protect. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for the first time in 7 years, Marcus Reed felt like maybe, just maybe, they could actually win. The list grew longer every week. Marcus kept it on his phone, updated constantly. Names of families who'd called him at midnight when their kid spiked a fever, and the ER doctor seemed dismissive. Mothers who texted him photos of rashes, asking if this looked serious enough to fight for proper testing. Fathers who needed someone to tell them they weren't crazy for questioning a diagnosis that didn't feel right. 3 months after the indictments, he had 417 families on that list. 417 people who'd decided that a former janitor with a dead daughter was more trustworthy than the entire medical establishment. The weight of that trust was crushing. You can't be on call for 400 families, Dr. Morrison said, finding Marcus in the hospital cafeteria at 2 in the morning. You haven't slept in 3 days. Mrs. Patterson's son is in the ICU. She needed someone to review his chart, make sure they weren't missing anything. And were they? Drug interaction between his antibiotics and his asthma medication. Nothing critical, but enough to slow his recovery. I caught it because I actually read his full medication list instead of just the current prescriptions. Morrison sat down heavily. You're making us look bad. You're making yourselves look bad. I'm just pointing it out. Fair enough. Morrison pulled out his own phone. Speaking of which, I need your opinion on something. Patient in 3 West, 72-year-old woman presenting with confusion and weakness. Dr. Winters diagnosed UTI and started antibiotics, but her labs don't quite fit. Marcus pulled up the chart Morrison shared, studied the numbers. Her sodium's low, really low, and look at her medication history. She's on diuretics for blood pressure. This isn't infection. This is hyponatremia from over-medication. That's what I thought, but when I suggested it to Dr. Winters, she told me I was overstepping. So you came to me instead of fighting her. Morrison looked uncomfortable. I'm still a resident. I can't just override attendings every time we disagree. Yes, you can. That's your job. To advocate for patients even when it pisses off your supervisors. Marcus stood. Come on. Let's go fix this before she has a seizure. They found Dr. Winters in the patient's room, preparing to administer another dose of antibiotics. Marcus stopped her hand. She doesn't need antibiotics. She needs IV saline and a diuretic adjustment. Dr. Winters' face flushed red. Mr. Reed, I'm treating a urinary tract infection confirmed by urinalysis. The urinalysis shows contamination, not infection. Look at the epithelial cell count. This is a collection error, not a true positive. Marcus turned to the patient. Ma'am, have you been feeling extra thirsty lately? Drinking more water than usual? The elderly woman nodded weakly. My daughter keeps telling me to stay hydrated. I've been drinking water all day. How much water? Maybe 10-12 glasses I read online. That's healthy. Marcus looked at Dr. Winters. She's on hydrochlorothiazide for blood pressure. She's drinking excessive water because she feels thirsty from the diuretic. But that's washing out her sodium. Classic water intoxication. Morrison pulled up the labs on his tablet. Her sodium's dropped 3 points since admission. If we keep her on IV fluids without correcting the electrolyte imbalance, she could have a seizure or worse, Marcus finished. Stop the antibiotics, start hypertonic saline, reduce her diuretic dose, and someone needs to have a conversation with her daughter about the dangers of overhydration in elderly patients on certain medications. Dr. Winters stood frozen, her hand still holding the antibiotic syringe. You can administer it if you want, Marcus said quietly. But if she seizes 20 minutes from now, you'll know why, and so will the medical board when the family sues. The syringe went into the sharps container. Dr. Winters turned to Morrison. Write the orders. Hypertonic saline reduced diuretic to half-dose, monitor sodium every 4 hours. She walked out without another word. The patient's daughter arrived 30 minutes later, frantic. Is my mother okay? The nurse said something about her medication being wrong. Marcus pulled her aside. Your mother's going to be fine, but we need to talk about her water intake. I know you're trying to help by keeping her hydrated, but too much water can actually be dangerous when someone's on blood pressure medication. But the internet said, the internet doesn't know your mother's medical history. Her doctor does. From now on, she should drink when she's thirsty, but not force fluids. And anytime someone recommends a health change you've read about online, run it by her physician first. The daughter nodded, tears in her eyes. I was trying to help. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were. Caring about her health is the right thing. You just need guidance on how to do it safely. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. She's lucky to have someone who pays attention. Most elderly patients don't. After the daughter left, Morrison leaned against the wall. How did you know about the water intake? Because I've seen it before. Amara did the same thing. Read online that hydration was important. Started drinking water constantly. Combined with the stress-induced loss of appetite, she was washing out her electrolytes while starving herself of nutrients. The doctors never asked about her water intake. They just saw confusion and assumed depression. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Learn. That's the point of all this. Every patient who dies from a missed diagnosis should teach us something. Should make us better at catching it the next time. Marcus's phone rang. Victoria. We have a problem. Hansen Biotech is offering a settlement. What kind of settlement? Full restitution to victim families. Funding for patient advocacy programs at all implicated hospitals. Medical license suspensions for the doctors involved instead of prison time. And a gag order preventing anyone from discussing the details publicly. Marcus felt his jaw clench. They want to buy silence. The families are considering it. $20 million split among 53 victims. That's over $300,000 per family. For people who've been struggling financially since losing their primary breadwinner, it's life-changing money. It's blood money, and it lets the doctors walk away with a slap on the wrist. Marcus, I understand how you feel, but do you understand what it's like to watch your child die and then have someone offer you money to shut up about it? His voice was rising. Morrison was watching him with concern. This isn't about money. It's about making sure it never happens again. Prison sentences, public exposure, systemic change. And if the families want the money instead, if they decide that feeding their kids today matters more than some abstract idea of justice, Marcus closed his eyes. Then I can't blame them, but I won't take it. Agent Mendez can have my testimony for free. They're voting tomorrow. Conference call with all the families. You should be there. The call happened at 6 p.m. in Victoria's downtown office. 53 families on a video conference, faces filling multiple screens. Marcus recognized every one of them. Had sat in their kitchens, had listened to their stories. Agent Mendez laid out the terms. Full restitution, as Mrs. Ashford mentioned. But the trade-off is significant. You can't discuss the case publicly, can't give interviews, can't write books or sell your stories. You take the money and you stay silent. Gloria Henderson spoke first, her voice strained. My son is dead. No amount of money brings him back. But I have 2 younger kids who need to eat, who need college funds, who need a future. I can't afford principals when their stomachs are empty. Carlos Rivera agreed. Maria wanted to go to art school. With this money I could start a scholarship in her name, help other kids like her. Isn't that justice too? One by one the families spoke. Most wanted the settlement, needed the settlement, had been drowning financially since losing their loved ones, and couldn't afford to say no. Marcus waited until everyone else had spoken. I respect whatever choice you make. You've all suffered enough. If taking this money helps you survive, then take it. But I'm voting no, and I'm asking Agent Mendez to proceed with prosecution using my testimony alone if necessary. Marcus, Victoria said gently, one testimony isn't enough. Without the other families, the case falls apart. Then it falls apart. But I won't be part of letting these doctors buy their freedom. Mrs. Henderson's face hardened on screen. Easy for you to say. You have a job now, a salary. You're not wondering how to pay rent next month. You're right. I'm sorry. That was privileged of me to say. Don't apologize for having privilege. Apologize for judging those of us who don't. The words stung because they were true. Marcus had been so focused on justice, he'd forgotten that survival came first for most people. Justice was a luxury you could afford only after your basic needs were met. I'm sorry, truly. Whatever you decide, I support it, and I'll keep fighting regardless. The vote was 47-6 in favor of the settlement. Only 5 families besides Marcus voted to continue prosecution. After the call ended, Victoria poured herself a scotch. You knew this would happen. I hoped it wouldn't, but yes, I knew. Marcus stared out the window at the city below. Hansen wins. The doctors get suspended for a few years, then they'll quietly return to practice. The families get money but no real justice. And the system continues exactly as it was. Not exactly. The settlement includes mandatory patient advocacy programs, independent oversight, regular audits of canceled tests and delayed diagnoses. All of which will be underfunded and ignored within 2 years. Probably. But it's something. It's more than existed before. Marcus turned to face her. Your daughter almost died. Doesn't that make you want to burn the whole system down? Every single day. But I'm also pragmatic enough to know that systems don't burn. They adapt. They absorb threats and continue. She took a sip of scotch. The question is whether we keep fighting anyway, even knowing we'll probably lose. You sound defeated. I sound realistic. There's a difference. Victoria set down her glass. But no, I'm not giving up. I'm just recalibrating expectations. We didn't get the revolution. We got incremental change. That's how progress actually happens. Tell that to the next kid who dies because a doctor canceled their vitamin test. I'd rather tell them about the advocacy program that might catch it, about the oversight that might save them, about the families who took settlement money and used it to fund medical education for low-income students who'll become better doctors than the ones who killed their loved ones. Marcus sat down heavily. When did you become the optimist? When I realized pessimism was just another luxury I can't afford. My daughter's alive. She's getting treatment. She wants to go to medical school and change the system from inside. If I give up now, I'm telling her that fighting is pointless, and I refuse to teach her that lesson. Sophia had been silent throughout the settlement discussion, but she spoke now from where she sat in the corner. Uncle Marcus, the family's made the right choice. He looked at her. She'd started calling him that a month ago. Uncle Marcus. Like they were family now. Like shared trauma had bound them together. How do you figure? Because they're alive to make choices. Their kids are alive. They have futures that need funding. Justice doesn't pay for groceries. She stood moving to sit beside him. You're angry because Amara didn't get this choice. She didn't get to grow up and decide what her death would mean. But these families do. Let them choose survival over vengeance. It's not vengeance. Isn't it just a little? Her voice was gentle, not accusing. You want the doctors to suffer the way you suffered. You want them to lose everything the way you lost Amara. That's human. That's understandable. But it's not justice. It's revenge. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Maybe I want both. Then get it another way. Keep doing what you're doing. Save the patients the system ignores. Be the advocate Amara needed. Make her death mean something without requiring everyone else's grief to look like yours. Victoria was watching them both with an unreadable expression. She's right, you know. You've saved 16 lives in 3 months. 16 people who are alive because you paid attention when nobody else did. That's not revenge. That's redemption. Redemption for what? For not being able to save your daughter. For all the times you trusted doctors who weren't trustworthy. For every moment you've spent wondering if you could have done something different. Victoria's voice was soft. Marcus, you did everything right. The system failed Amara, not you. But you're carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry. How do I put it down? You don't. You just learn to carry it differently. Let it motivate instead of consume. Let it guide instead of destroy. Sophia stood. I need to go. Therapy appointment in 20 minutes. But Uncle Marcus? Thank you. For everything. For saving my life. For showing Mom that money can't buy safety. For being angry enough to fight when everyone else was tired. She hugged him quickly. Keep fighting. Just remember to rest sometimes too. After she left, Marcus and Victoria sat in silence. She's remarkable, Marcus said finally. She's terrifying. Already talking about healthcare policy reform and patient rights legislation. I created a monster. You created a person who will actually fix things. That's not a monster. That's hope. Victoria smiled. Coming from you, that actually means something. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Rita. Emergency. County General. 10-year-old boy presenting with abdominal pain. They're diagnosing constipation. Mother insists it's more serious. They're threatening to call CPS for medical neglect if she doesn't accept the diagnosis and take him home. Marcus was on his feet immediately. I have to go. Go. Save someone. Remind me why we're doing this. He made it to County General in 23 minutes. Found the mother, Shanice Williams, in a standoff with 2 doctors and a social worker. Mrs. Williams, your son's X-ray shows stool buildup, the attending physician was saying with forced patience. This is classic constipation. We'll send you home with a laxative prescription. My son doesn't have constipation. He has pain that makes him scream, that makes him vomit. That's getting worse, not better. Children often exaggerate pain. My child is not exaggerating. Shanice's voice was shaking with controlled fury. And if you don't run proper tests, I'm taking him to another hospital. If you remove your child against medical advice, we're required to contact Child Protective Services. Marcus stepped into the room. No, you're not. AMA discharge doesn't constitute medical neglect unless there's evidence of immediate danger. Since you're diagnosing constipation, a non-emergent condition, there's no legal basis for a CPS report. The attending turned. Who are you? Marcus Reed, patient advocate. And before you tell me I have no authority here, I should mention I'm consulting with the FBI on a federal investigation into hospitals that systematically deny care to low-income patients. So every decision you make right now is potentially evidence. The social worker stepped back immediately. The attending's face went carefully neutral. I'm providing standard care based on clinical findings. Then you won't object to a second opinion. Dr. Morrison. Marcus held up his phone. Morrison was already on speaker. Can you walk me through what tests should be ordered for a 10-year-old with acute abdominal pain that's worsening? Morrison's voice came through clearly. Complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel lipase and amylase levels. Abdominal ultrasound at minimum. If there's fever or signs of sepsis, add blood cultures. You're ruling out appendicitis, bowel obstruction, pancreatitis. Thank you. Marcus lowered the phone. Run those tests. If they all come back normal, and it's truly constipation, Mrs. Williams will take her son home with the laxatives. But if you're wrong, and he has something serious, at least you'll have covered your bases legally. The attending looked like he wanted to argue. But Marcus had mentioned the FBI investigation and legal liability in the same breath. That was enough. Fine, I'll order the tests. 2 hours later, they had results. Acute pancreatitis. The boy's pancreatic enzymes were through the roof. Another day of constipation treatment, and he could have died. Shanice Williams found Marcus in the waiting room. They're admitting him, starting IV fluids and pain management. The doctor apologized, actually apologized. He should do more than apologize. He should examine why he dismissed your concerns in the first place. Because I'm black, because I'm on Medicaid, because he assumed I was an uneducated mother who didn't know better. She sat beside him, exhausted. How do you do this? How do you fight this fight every single day without losing your mind? Who says I haven't lost my mind? She laughed, unexpected and genuine. Fair point. But seriously, you saved my son's life tonight. You've saved how many other lives? What keeps you going? Marcus thought about Amara, about her smile, her dreams, her absolute certainty that medicine was about helping people. Guilt mostly, and hope. Guilt that I didn't save my daughter. Hope that I can save someone else's. Your daughter would be proud of you. I don't know about that. I think she'd be disappointed in how broken the system is, how hard it is to get basic care, how much fighting is required just to be heard. Maybe. But she'd also be proud that her father didn't give up, that he turned grief into action. That's rare, Mr. Reed. Most people who lose a child just collapse. You built something from the loss. I'm not sure what I've built. Some days it feels like I'm just shouting into void. You're not. You saved my son. You saved the Ashford girl. You've saved 16 other people in 3 months. That's not shouting into a void. That's changing the world one family at a time. Marcus's phone rang. Morrison. Marcus, I need you at St. Catherine's, now. We have a situation. He arrived to chaos. Ambulances, police cars, news vans setting up outside. Morrison met him at the entrance. Dr. Winters is dead. Suicide. They found her in her office an hour ago with a bottle of pills and a note. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. What did the note say? That she couldn't live with what she'd done. That she'd been part of Hastings's network. That she'd canceled tests, delayed diagnoses, taken money from Hansen Biotech. That she'd tried to stop after the indictments but couldn't. The guilt was too much. Jesus Christ. There's more. She left a list. Names of other doctors still doing it, still taking money, still denying care. She wanted it on record before she died. How many names? 37, including 5 at this hospital. Marcus sat on the curb, head in his hands. A woman had died. A doctor who'd made terrible choices, but who'd also tried to make amends. Who'd been so consumed by guilt that death seemed like the only answer. This is my fault, he said. No. Morrison sat beside him. This is the fault of a system that rewarded her for killing patients and punished her for having a conscience. You didn't create that system. You're just exposing it. She could have lived. Could have faced trial, served time, rebuilt her life afterward. Instead, she's dead. And 37 other doctors might stop now. Might decide that whatever Hansen is paying them isn't worth dying over. Might save lives because they're afraid of becoming Dr. Winters. That's a terrible calculus. Welcome to medicine. We make terrible calculations every day. Victoria arrived 20 minutes later. She'd heard the news. The board wants me to make a statement. Distance the hospital from Dr. Winters. Call her a troubled individual who acted alone. Are you going to? No, I'm going to tell the truth, that she was part of a systemic problem. That she tried to make amends, that her death should be a wake-up call to every doctor still taking money to deny care. Victoria looked at the news vans. This is going to be everywhere. Dr. Winters' suicide, the list of names, the continued corruption. We're going to look terrible. Good. Maybe terrible is what we need to look like. Maybe people need to be horrified before they'll actually demand change. She studied him. You're different tonight. Harder. A woman died because of work I did. That tends to have an effect. A woman died because of choices she made. You didn't force her to take Hansen's money. You didn't force her to cancel tests. You exposed consequences that were always there. She just couldn't face them. Marcus stood. I need to go home, sleep, process this, figure out what comes next. What comes next is you keep fighting. Because for every Dr. Winters who couldn't handle the guilt, there are 36 others who apparently can. They need to be stopped. I'm one person, Victoria, one burned-out, guilt-ridden person who's starting to wonder if any of this makes a difference. It does. Ask Sophia. Ask Jamie Chen. Ask Shanice Williams' son. They're alive because you made a difference. And Dr. Winters is dead because I made a difference. That's the trade-off: lives saved for lives destroyed. Victoria grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. Yes, that's exactly the trade-off. Welcome to war, Marcus. People die in wars, even people on our side. Even people who were trying to do better. If you can't handle that, walk away now. But if you stay, accept that some casualties are inevitable. He pulled away from her. I need to think. Think fast, because those 36 doctors are already lawyering up. And if we don't move quickly, Dr. Winters' list becomes inadmissible evidence and everyone walks. Marcus walked to the subway alone, rode home in silence, climbed the stairs to his apartment. Amara's photo was waiting on the wall. I don't know if I can do this, he told her picture. I don't know if I'm strong enough, smart enough, good enough. A woman died tonight because of me. The photo didn't answer. But Marcus remembered something Amara had said once when she was 13 and upset about a friend's problems. Dad, sometimes helping people means they get mad at you. Sometimes they blame you for making them see things they don't want to see. But that doesn't mean you stop helping. It just means helping is hard. She'd been talking about telling a teacher that her friend was being abused at home. The friend had been angry, had blamed Amara for the CPS investigation that followed. But the friend had also been removed from danger. Sometimes helping is hard. Sometimes people die. Sometimes you do everything right and it still goes wrong. But you keep fighting anyway. Marcus pulled out his phone, texted Agent Mendez. I have Dr. Winter's list. 36 names. Let's finish what we started. Then he texted Victoria. I'm in. Let's go to war. And finally he texted Rita. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. We're going through every patient file at St. Catherine's, every canceled test, every delayed diagnosis. If there are more doctors still doing this, we're going to find them. The responses came quickly. Mendez. Already on it. FBI raid on Hansen Biotech headquarters tomorrow, seizing all records. Victoria. Good. I'll handle the media. Time to stop playing defense. Rita. I'll bring coffee. We're going to need it. Marcus set his phone down. Looked at Amara's picture one more time. Okay, baby girl. Let's do this. Let's make them pay attention. Let's make sure no other kid dies the way you did. Outside his window, the city hummed with millions of lives, each one precious. Each one vulnerable to a system that treated people as profit centers instead of human beings. Tomorrow, they'd start dismantling that system. Tonight, Marcus Reed finally allowed himself to grieve not just for his daughter, but for Dr. Winters, for all the doctors who'd been corrupted by money and pressure for a medical system that had lost its way. And then, he'd get up and fight again. Because that's what you did when you'd lost everything. You made sure nobody else had to. The FBI raid on Hansen Biotech made every national news outlet by 7 a.m. Marcus watched it unfold on the hospital break room television, while Rita poured coffee into styrofoam cups that had seen better days. They're bringing out boxes, Rita said, eyes glued to the screen. Look at that. Must be thousands of documents. Agent Mendez appeared on camera, flanked by federal prosecutors. Her voice was clipped professional. Today's action represents the culmination of a 6-month investigation into systematic healthcare fraud affecting thousands of patients across multiple states. We have evidence that Hansen Biotech incentivized physicians to deny necessary medical care in order to drive down costs at hospitals they planned to acquire. A reporter shouted a question. Is it true that one of the doctors involved committed suicide? Mendez's expression didn't change. Dr. Sarah Winters's death is under investigation. What we can confirm is that she provided critical evidence before her death that has led to today's raid and additional warrants for 36 physicians currently under investigation. Marcus's phone exploded with texts. Families from his list, other hospital staff, reporters he'd never spoken to. He silenced it and turned to Rita. 6 a.m. You promised me patient files. She pulled out a tablet. Already loaded. Every patient admission in the past 18 months. I've flagged the ones with canceled tests or unexplained delays in diagnosis. There are 214. Jesus. 214 in 18 months at one hospital. That's just the obvious ones. Could be more if we dig deeper. Rita handed him the tablet. I've organized them by attending physician. Want to guess who has the most flags? Marcus scrolled through. Dr. Richard Santos. 47 canceled tests. All on Medicaid patients. He looked up. I don't know that name. He's new, started 6 months ago, transferred from Mercy West right around the time Hastings got indicted. So he learned from Hastings's mistakes, came here where nobody was watching yet. Exactly. And Marcus, he's on Dr. Winter's list. Marcus stood. Where's his office? 4th floor, but he's in surgery until noon. Then we have 4 hours to go through his patient files before he knows we're looking. They worked in silence, pulling records, cross-referencing labs, documenting patterns. By 10 a.m., they had enough evidence to bury Santos. Cancelled nutritional panels, delayed imaging, early discharges for patients who clearly needed continued observation. All of it justified with carefully worded notes about resource allocation and appropriate care protocols. Morrison joined them at 10:30, still in scrubs, from an overnight shift. "Please tell me you have something. The board is freaking out about the FBI raid. They want to prove St. Catherine's is cleaning house." "We have something." Marcus turned the tablet around. Dr. Richard Santos, systematic denial of care. 47 patients in 6 months. At least 12 developed preventable complications. 3 died. Morrison's face went pale. "I've worked with Santos. He seemed competent. Thorough, even. He is thorough. Thoroughly corrupt." Rita pulled up financial records. He's also receiving quarterly consulting payments from a shell company that traces back to Hansen Biotech. 20,000 every 3 months. That's not enough to risk his medical license. It is when you're drowning in student loan debt. Marcus showed them Santos's financial disclosure. 400,000 in loans. He's paying 3,000 a month just in interest. Hansen's money probably feels like a lifeline. "So what do we do?" Morrison asked. "Confront him. Turn the evidence over to the FBI." "Both." Marcus pulled out his phone. "But first I want to talk to his patients, the ones who are still alive. They deserve to know what happened to them." The first patient was Gerald Martinez, 68 years old, recovering from pneumonia, in room 6 East. Santos had delayed his chest X-ray for 3 days, claiming it wasn't medically necessary. By the time the imaging was done, Martinez had developed a lung abscess that required surgery. Marcus knocked softly. "Mr. Martinez, I'm Marcus Reed, patient advocate. Do you have a few minutes to talk about your care?" Martinez looked exhausted, oxygen tube in his nose-chest incision still healing. "What about my care?" "Your chest X-ray. When you were first admitted with pneumonia, Dr. Santos waited 3 days to order imaging. Did he explain why?" "Said they wanted to try antibiotics first. See if I improved without putting me through unnecessary radiation exposure." "And did you improve?" "No. Got worse. Started coughing up blood. That's when they finally did the X-ray and found the abscess." Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "Doc said that was just bad luck, that sometimes pneumonia progresses despite treatment." "It wasn't bad luck, Mr. Martinez. Standard protocol for pneumonia is imaging within 24 hours. Dr. Santos delayed your X-ray because he's being paid by a company to reduce testing costs. That delay turned a treatable pneumonia into a surgical emergency." The color drained from Martinez's face. "He what? He's part of a network of doctors who deny necessary care in exchange for money. You're not the only patient he's done this to. There are at least 46 others." "I could have died." "Yes, sir, you could have." Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then his jaw set in a way that reminded Marcus of every parent who'd ever fought for their child's care. "What do you need from me?" "Your permission to share your medical records with federal investigators. Your willingness to testify if this goes to trial. And your voice added to the others demanding that doctors like Santos lose their licenses permanently. You've got it. All of it." Marcus visited 11 more patients that morning. 11 people who'd been harmed by Santos's greed. 11 families who'd trusted the system and been betrayed. By noon, he had 11 sworn statements and a fury that burned cold and clear. Dr. Santos emerged from surgery at 12:15. He was pulling off his surgical cap when Marcus intercepted him in the hallway. "Dr. Santos, we need to talk." Santos barely glanced at him. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Marcus Reed, patient advocate. And yes, you know me. You've been avoiding me for 6 months." "I don't avoid anyone. I'm simply busy providing patient care." Santos moved to walk past him. Marcus blocked his path. Like you provided care to Gerald Martinez's 3-day delay on a chest x-ray. Or Rebecca Thompson, the woman whose abdominal ultrasound you canceled because you decided her pain was probably just gas. She had a gallstone blocking her bile duct and went septic. Santos's expression shifted from dismissive to wary. I don't discuss patient care in hallways. Then let's discuss it in the conference room. You, me, Dr. Morrison, and the FBI agent who's waiting downstairs with questions about the $80,000 Hansen Biotech paid you this year. The blood drained from Santos's face. For a moment, Marcus thought he might run. Instead, he straightened his spine and said, I want my lawyer. Smart move. You're going to need one. Agent Mendez had arrived with a warrant for Santos's hospital records and devices. She sat across from him in the conference room, while his hastily summoned attorney flipped through the evidence Marcus had compiled. My client denies any wrongdoing, the lawyer said. The consulting arrangement with Hansen Biotech was for legitimate research purposes. Any delays in patient care were based on sound medical judgment. Sound medical judgment that consistently targeted low-income patients, Marcus said. Funny how Dr. Santos never canceled tests for privately insured patients, just the Medicaid ones. That's circumstantial. It's a pattern, and it matches the exact same pattern we've documented with 46 other physicians. Mendez leaned forward. Dr. Santos, I'm offering you one chance to cooperate. Tell us who recruited you. Tell us how the network operates. Tell us who else is involved. Do that, and we'll recommend leniency. Santos looked at his lawyer, who shook his head firmly. My client has nothing to say. Then your client is looking at 15 to 20 years for healthcare fraud conspiracy and negligent homicide in 3 deaths. Mendez stood. We'll see you in court, doctor. After they left, Morrison slumped in his chair. That's 3 doctors arrested in 6 months from this hospital alone. The reputation damage is catastrophic. Good, Marcus said. Maybe catastrophic is what's needed. Maybe hospitals need to be terrified of hiring corrupt doctors. Maybe that fear will make them actually screen candidates instead of just checking if their licenses are current. You're assuming they didn't know. What if administration knew Santos was dirty when they hired him? What if they brought him in specifically because he'd keep costs down? The thought had occurred to Marcus. Then we investigate administration next. You can't investigate everyone, Marcus. At some point, you have to accept that the problem is bigger than you can fix. Then I'll fix the piece I can reach, and then I'll reach further. His phone rang. Victoria. Turn on CNN, now. Marcus pulled up the channel on his phone. A press conference. The CEO of Hansen Biotech, flanked by lawyers. The man's face was composed, sympathetic even. Hansen Biotech categorically denies these allegations. While we did employ consulting physicians to advise us on healthcare efficiency, we never instructed anyone to deny necessary patient care. Any physician who made that choice did so independently and in violation of our explicit ethics policies. They're throwing the doctors under the bus, Morrison said. Of course they are. Standard corporate playbook. Blame rogue employees. Claim ignorance. Settle quietly and move on. Victoria's voice came through the phone. But we're not letting them move on. I'm calling a press conference for 5 p.m. I want you there, Marcus. I want the families there. I want the world to hear directly from the people Hansen's greed nearly killed. I'm not good at press conferences. You don't need to be good. You need to be honest. Tell them about Amara. Tell them about Sophia. Tell them about Gerald Martinez and every other patient Santos harmed. Put faces to the statistics. Victoria, I'm a janitor who got lucky. You're a father who refused to let his daughter's death be meaningless. You're an advocate who's saved 19 lives in 4 months. You're the person best qualified to speak about what's broken and how to fix it. So you're speaking. 5 p.m. Don't be late. She hung up before he could argue. Morrison was watching him. She's right, you know. People need to hear from you, not from lawyers or executives or even doctors. From someone who's lived the consequences. I don't want to be the face of this movement. Too late. You already are. The press conference was held in front of St. Catherine's Hospital. News crews from every major network, print journalists with recorders, photographers with cameras that clicked like mechanical insects. Victoria spoke first, crisp and authoritative. 4 months ago, my daughter nearly died because doctors caring more about profit than patients denied her the simple test that could have saved her life. That's when I learned that healthcare in America isn't about healing. It's about money. And when money matters more than lives, people die. She introduced the families. Gloria Henderson, Carlos Rivera, Shanice Williams, Gerald Martinez. One by one, they told their stories. Their pain raw and real, and impossible to dismiss as statistics. Then Victoria called Marcus forward. He stood at the podium looking at the cameras at the reporters at the crowd that had gathered. Somewhere in that crowd were families he'd helped, patients he'd saved, and somewhere in his heart was Amara. My name is Marcus Reed. 7 years ago, my 15-year-old daughter died because a doctor named Leonard Hastings canceled a $3 blood test. He canceled it because we were poor, because we were black, because he'd decided some patients weren't worth the full resources of modern medicine. His voice was steady, clear. I became a janitor at the hospital where my daughter died because I needed to understand how the system had failed her. I spent 7 years mopping floors and reading medical journals and watching the same patterns repeat. Poor patients ignored. Minority patients dismissed. Sick people treated like burdens instead of human beings deserving care. A reporter shouted a question. Do you blame the doctors or the system? I blame both. The system creates the incentives. The doctors choose to follow them. Both have to change. Marcus gripped the podium. We've arrested 53 physicians so far. We've documented over 3,000 cases of deliberate denial of care. We've proven that healthcare corporations are paying doctors to let patients suffer. But arresting corrupt doctors isn't enough. We need systemic change. What kind of change? Another reporter called out. Independent patient advocates in every hospital, not employed by the hospital, not beholden to administration. Independent watchdogs whose only job is catching what gets missed. Financial disclosure requirements for all physicians showing any consulting arrangements. Criminal penalties for corporate executives who incentivize denial of care. And most importantly, we need to fundamentally reimagine what healthcare means. It's not a business. It's a human right. And we need to start treating it that way. The questions came rapid fire after that. How many more doctors were involved? What was Victoria's company doing to address the corruption? Would Marcus continue his advocacy work? He answered what he could, deflected what he couldn't. And through it all, he felt Amara's presence. Her belief that medicine could be better, should be better, would be better, if enough people refused to accept the broken status quo. After the press conference, a woman approached him. Late 60s, gray hair, eyes red from crying. Mr. Reed, I'm Eleanor Hastings, Leonard's mother. Marcus's entire body went rigid. Mrs. Hastings, I wanted to tell you I'm sorry for what my son did to your daughter, for all the pain he caused. I raised him to be better than that. I thought I raised him to care about people. Her voice broke. I don't know where I went wrong. You didn't go wrong. He made his choices. Adults are responsible for their own actions. He was a good boy once, volunteered at free clinics, talked about serving underserved communities. Then medical school debt and lifestyle expectations, and somewhere along the way he forgot why he became a doctor. She wiped her eyes. He destroyed so many lives, including his own. He'll die in prison. He should. I know, but he's still my son, and I needed you to know that I'm sorry, that his family is sorry, that we're donating all his assets to a foundation for medical education for low-income students. It won't bring back your daughter or anyone else he killed, but maybe it will help create doctors who remember their humanity. Marcus looked at this grieving mother, this woman whose son had killed his daughter, and felt something shift. Not forgiveness. He wasn't capable of that yet. But maybe understanding, maybe recognition that monsters were made not born, that systems broke people who started out wanting to help. Thank you for telling me, and Mrs. Hastings, I hope your foundation succeeds. We need more doctors who care, who remember that patients are people, not profit centers. She squeezed his hand and walked away, shoulders bent under the weight of her son's sins. Morrison found him 10 minutes later. That was intense. The press conference, I mean. It needed to be said. The medical establishment is going to come after you now, hard. They'll call you unqualified, dangerous, a threat to physician autonomy. Let them. I've been called worse. Marcus, I'm serious. They'll try to discredit everything you've done. They'll dig into your past, your credentials, your mental health history after Amara died. Then they'll find a father who had PTSD after watching his daughter die. A paramedic who couldn't go back to work because he'd lost faith in the system. A man who became a janitor because it was the only way he could stay close to medicine without practicing it. Marcus met Morrison's eyes. They can publish all of that. I'm not ashamed of my grief or my breakdown or my unconventional path to advocacy. It's what makes me qualified, not what disqualifies me. A text came through from Sophia. Saw the press conference. You were amazing. Mom's crying. I'm crying. Uncle Marcus, you're changing everything. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for not giving up even when it's hard. He texted back, thank you for surviving, for reminding me why this matters. Over the next 2 weeks, the story exploded. Congressional hearings on healthcare fraud. State medical boards launching investigations. Hospital systems scrambling to implement oversight programs. And through it all, Marcus's phone rang constantly with families asking for help, patients needing advocacy, whistleblowers wanting to expose corruption in their hospitals. He couldn't answer all of them, couldn't save everyone. But he tried. A 3-year-old boy with a rash that doctors dismissed as eczema. Marcus recognized scarlet fever and got him on antibiotics before it damaged his heart. A 47-year-old woman whose chest pain was blamed on anxiety. Marcus insisted on a cardiac workup that revealed 3 blocked arteries. She had emergency bypass surgery the next day. A 14-year-old girl whose fatigue and weight loss were diagnosed as depression. Marcus saw the symptoms Amara had shown and ordered the tests that revealed Crohn's disease. Each save was a small victory. Each life preserved was proof that the fight mattered. But for every patient he saved, there were dozens he couldn't reach. Hospitals in other cities, states without advocacy programs, rural areas where healthcare access was already limited and corruption went unchallenged because nobody was watching. 6 months after the initial indictments, Congress passed the Patient Protection and Advocacy Act. It mandated independent patient advocates in all hospitals receiving federal funding, required financial disclosure for physician consulting arrangements, established criminal penalties for corporate executives who incentivized denial of care. Victoria called it a victory. Morrison called it progress. The families called it a start. Marcus called it insufficient. It's not enough, he told Victoria over coffee in her office. We've addressed the obvious corruption, but not the underlying problem. Healthcare is still profit-driven. Hospitals still make money by cutting costs. Insurance companies still deny necessary treatment. We've put some band-aids on a hemorrhaging wound. So what do you want? Complete system overhaul, single-payer healthcare. That's a political fight that'll take decades. Then we start fighting it now, because every day we wait is another Amara, another Gerald Martinez, another patient who dies because care costs too much or isn't profitable enough. Victoria studied him. You've changed. 6 months ago, you just wanted justice for your daughter. Now you want to revolutionize American healthcare. 6 months ago, I thought fixing individual cases would be enough. Then I realized the cases are symptoms. The disease is the system itself. You can't fix symptoms without curing disease. That's ambitious. That's necessary. Sophia entered the office, backpack slung over one shoulder. She'd started taking pre-med courses at the community college. Her therapy was going well. Her eating disorder was managed. She looked healthy in a way that still sometimes surprised Marcus. "Am I interrupting?" "No," Victoria said. "We're just discussing Marcus's plan to single-handedly reform American healthcare." "Not single-handedly, with help." Marcus turned to Sophia. "How was class?" "Biochemistry is kicking my ass, but I love it. Professor said I have an intuitive grasp of metabolic pathways." She grinned. "Must be all those months of screwing up my own metabolism. Silver lining." "How's the college application coming?" Victoria asked. "Good. I'm writing my essay about nearly dying and the janitor who saved my life." She looked at Marcus. "Is that okay if I tell our story?" "It's your story to tell." "It's our story. Yours, mine, Mom's. All the families. All the patients you've saved. I want people to know that one person really can make a difference. That a delivery man or a janitor or anyone can be a hero if they pay attention and refuse to accept injustice." "I was a paramedic first," Marcus corrected gently. "Doesn't matter what your job title is. Matters what you do with it." Sophia sat beside him. "I've been thinking about my future. About what kind of doctor I want to be. And I want to be like you. Someone who sees patients as people, who questions diagnoses that don't fit, who fights for the ones nobody else fights for. Someone who remembers that medicine is about healing, not profit." Marcus felt his throat tighten. That's what Amara wanted too, to be a doctor who made a difference. "Then I'll do it for both of us, her and me, the daughters who almost didn't make it, but are still here, still fighting, still believing medicine can be better." Victoria was crying quietly. Marcus realized he was too. "She'd be proud of you," he said to Sophia. "Amara. She'd be so damn proud." "I hope so. Because I'm going to spend my whole career proving that the system that killed her and almost killed me doesn't have to exist. That we can build something better. Something that values every life equally." A year after Marcus punched Dr. Hastings in the face and held a syringe over Victoria Ashford's dying daughter, he stood in a congressional hearing room testifying about healthcare reform. Sophia sat behind him taking notes for her college entrance essay. Victoria was beside her, having taken a leave of absence from her company to lobby full-time for patient protection legislation. The committee chair, Senator Patricia Owens, leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, critics say your advocacy work threatens physician autonomy. That patient advocates second-guessing medical decisions will lead to defensive medicine and increased costs. How do you respond?" Marcus looked directly at the cameras broadcasting the hearing. "I respond by saying that physician autonomy without accountability is just another word for physicians doing whatever they want, without oversight. That defensive medicine that catches diseases is better than negligent medicine that misses them. And that increased costs from proper diagnosis are nothing compared to the costs of treating preventable complications or burying patients who died because someone decided their life wasn't worth a $3 blood test." But where do we draw the line? How do we balance medical expertise with patient advocacy? We draw the line at dignity, at compassion, at the basic principle that every human being deserves care regardless of their ability to pay. Expertise means nothing if it's not applied equally. If wealthy patients get thorough workups while poor patients get dismissed as anxious or drug-seeking, that's not medicine. That's discrimination with a stethoscope. Senator Owens nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. Your testimony has been illuminating." After the hearing, reporters swarmed. Marcus answered their questions with practiced ease now. Yes, he was starting a national patient advocacy organization. Yes, he was going back to school to finish his medical degree. Yes, he believed fundamental healthcare reform was possible. And yes, he was doing all of it in memory of his daughter, Amara Reed, who died at 15 because the system valued profit over her life. As he walked out of the building, Sophia caught up to him. "That was perfect. The bit about discrimination with a stethoscope. That's going in my essay." "Your essay is going to be longer than your entire college application." "Good. They should know what they're getting. Someone who won't shut up about healthcare justice. They walked together toward the subway. Marcus's phone buzzed with messages from families, from other advocates, from people who wanted to learn how to fight their own battles against medical injustice. "Uncle Marcus," Sophia said quietly, "do you think we're actually going to change the system?" "I think we're going to try. And trying is more than most people do." "That's not really an answer. It's the only honest one I have. The system is huge, entrenched, defended by people with money and power. But it's also vulnerable. Because it depends on people staying silent. On families accepting that deaths are just bad luck. On patients trusting blindly instead of questioning." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "We make noise. We question everything. We refuse to accept that this is just how it is. And maybe slowly we create enough pressure that the system has to change or break. And if it breaks, then we build something better from the pieces." They continued toward the subway, two people among millions, insignificant in the grand scheme, except for one thing: they refused to be silent. Marcus's phone rang one more time. "Rita." "Marcus, we have another one. 8-year-old boy, County General, presenting with headaches. They're diagnosing tension headaches and sending him home. Mother insists it's more serious. Symptoms: headaches, nausea, vision changes, balance problems." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "That's not tension headaches. That's neurological. Possibly a brain tumor." "That's what I thought. But the attending won't order imaging. Says the family's overreacting." "I'm on my way." He hung up, looked at Sophia. "I have to go. Emergency." "Go save someone. I'll tell Mom you'll be late for dinner." Marcus headed for the subway, already pulling up the hospital's contact information, already calling Dr. Morrison for backup, already doing what he'd done dozens of times now, racing against time and ignorance and systemic failure to save a life the system had decided wasn't worth saving. The boy's name was Daniel Cooper. He had a medulloblastoma, a brain tumor, that would have killed him if they'd waited another week. Marcus caught it with one look at his symptoms. One insistence that imaging was non-negotiable, one refusal to let another child die because a doctor was too busy or too arrogant or too corrupt to order proper tests. Daniel's mother hugged him in the hospital hallway after the diagnosis was confirmed, after her son was rushed into surgery, after she'd stopped shaking enough to speak. "You saved him," the doctor said, "if we'd waited even a few more days." "You saved him," Marcus corrected, "by trusting your instincts, by refusing to accept a diagnosis that didn't fit, by fighting when they tried to send you home. That's what saved your son. But you listened. You believed me when nobody else would. That's my job. Believing mothers who know their children are sick. Believing patients who know their bodies. Believing that people are the experts on their own suffering." She held his hands tightly. "Thank you. Thank you for my son's life." Marcus thought of Amara, of all the times he'd tried to advocate for her and been dismissed, of the guilt he carried for not fighting harder, for trusting doctors who didn't deserve trust. Thank your son for surviving. Thank yourself for being the kind of mother who refuses to give up. And when he's grown and healthy and living his life, tell him his survival matters. That it's part of a larger fight to make sure no child is dismissed, no parent is ignored, no life is considered disposable. Daniel's surgery was successful. The tumor was removed. His prognosis was good. Another life saved. Another small victory in an endless war. Marcus rode the subway home at midnight, exhausted and wired, thinking about the 8-year-old boy who would grow up because his mother refused to be silenced, and a former janitor refused to let the system fail again. He thought about Amara, about Sophia, about all the children who lived in the space between medicine's promises and its failures. And he thought about tomorrow, when he'd wake up and do it all again. Fight the same fights. Save the same patients. Challenge the same systems. Because that's what you did when you'd lost everything and found purpose in the loss. You kept fighting. You kept believing that one person could make a difference. You kept proving that love for a dead daughter could transform into love for all daughters, all sons, all the vulnerable people who needed someone to pay attention. Marcus Reed had started as a father who couldn't save his child. He'd become something more, a voice for the voiceless, a hammer against injustice, a reminder that healthcare was supposed to heal, not harm. And he'd keep being that voice, that hammer, that reminder until the system changed or he died trying. Because Amara's life had meant something, and so would her death. Every single day, with every single patient, Marcus made sure of that. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, the patients had someone in their corner who would never ever stop fighting.